Not one of these bands got a fair trial. Critics came in with the verdict already written. Fans refused to care.
When I gave the word, now in the morning I sleep alone.
The internet turned some of them into memes that outlived the music. And here's the thing. Most of them outsold the people who hated them. 12 bands. 12 stories of real, documented, historic hatred. Let's start where the critics always started, with their knives already out. Number 10, Matchbox 20. The critics had words for Matchbox 20, a lot of them safe, bland, corporate, elevator rock. The kind of music you put on when you don't actually want to be challenged. And the specific contempt they absorbed in the late 90s says more about that era than it does about the band.
Just wait a minute, well, it kind of fell apart, things get so...
Yourself or Someone Like You came out in 1996, right in the middle of grunge's dominance, when rock was supposed to hurt, when it was supposed to be raw and damaged and self-destructive. And Matchbox 20 showed up with clean production and songs about adult pain that didn't perform itself. Push. 3 a.m., which Rob Thomas wrote about watching his mother fight cancer, by the way.
Put a lie to me, like I'm a little untrusted when I think.
Critics filed the whole thing under post-grunge light before they'd listened all the way through. The album eventually went 12 times platinum, and still the consensus was essentially, this is music for people who don't want to be challenged. The implication being that millions of people who found something real in those songs were somehow getting it wrong. And Rob Thomas handled it the way you handle being dismissed when you know you're right.
And I feel like something's gonna give. And I'm a little...
He just kept working, didn't fight the press, didn't escalate, kept writing. Then Carlos Santana called and the two of them made Smooth.
She said, I don't know why he...
I know. You probably have that song burned somewhere in your memory in a complicated way at this point. But here's what you can't argue with. At the Grammys in 2000, Smooth won Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best Pop Collaboration. 3 Grammys.
Crazy, crazy, don't rush.
And suddenly, all those critics whose years calling Rob Thomas a poor man's Eddie Vedder had to watch him pick up hardware with one of the legends of American music.
No, not here.
Here's what I find fascinating about the aftermath. It didn't change the narrative. The critics who had decided Matchbox 20 were corporate rock a decade earlier just quietly moved on. No correction. No acknowledgement that maybe they'd been wrong. The dismissal just faded, which in some ways is worse than continued hatred. At least hatred is attention.
That the truth is gonna hurt you.
There's something specific about being the band that gets tolerated instead of celebrated. Your fans know every word. The people whose job it is to pay attention act like your furniture. You can't win that argument. The only thing you can do is keep making music that matters to the people who actually listen. Number 9, Imagine Dragons.
The master of my sea,
In 2013, Radioactive by Imagine Dragons broke a Billboard Hot 100 record for consecutive weeks charted. 87 weeks.
Spirit to a dove, your spirit up.
And if you've spent any time on rock music forums, that single sentence explains every piece of organized contempt you've ever read about this band.
You're in the flames, you're the face of the future, the blood in my veins.
Imagine Dragons came out of Las Vegas. They were a working band, genuinely hardworking, playing small venues, building an audience one room at a time. Its time broke them in 2012. Radioactive made them massive.
Second, don't you tell me what you think that I can be. I'm the one.
By 2014, stadium headliners. You'd hear their songs in trailers, in sports arenas, in car commercials, which is both a testament to how broadly the music connected and according to a very loud corner of the internet, the exact evidence that they were not real rock. Rock purists came in hard. Message board threads literally titled, "Imagine Dragons is the worst thing to happen to rock."
But they never did, ever lived, ebbing and flowing, inhibited.
Arguments that they were watered down stadium pop masquerading as alternative. That their success was proof rock was dying.
Things have been, second.
Not killed by outsiders, but captured by casual listeners who wanted something vaguely edgy for their morning commute. And here's what makes that specific hatred interesting. It wasn't coming from outside rock. It was coming from inside. From the people who saw themselves as gatekeepers of what rock was supposed to be. Dan Reynolds has talked about it openly. He's been to those forums. Read what they wrote.
The blood in my veins.
And there's something uniquely modern about that experience. Being the target of organized online contempt while simultaneously selling out stadiums. You can look up your own hate in real time. Every bad faith argument, every meme, every think piece about why your success is a sign of cultural decline. And then you go play the show for 50,000 people who didn't get the memo they were supposed to hate you. Here's the thing I keep coming back to. The contempt for Imagine Dragons was at least partly about what their success meant to people invested in a certain idea of rock.
Limited till it broke up when it rained down. It rained down like.
If a band this accessible can fill arenas without guitar solos, that says something about what rock actually is, versus what people needed it to be.
I was broken from a young age, taking my soak into the masses, writing my poem.
The gatekeepers had spent years maintaining a wall. Imagine Dragons walked right through it without asking permission. That was the actual crime, not the music, the success.
It broke up when it rained down. It rained down like.
You can be right about a band and still be wrong about what that means. Drop what you think about them in the comments. I genuinely want to know which side of that argument you're on.
You're in the flames, you're the face of the future, the blood in my veins.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
Number 8, Coldplay. Noel Gallagher of Oasis once called Chris Martin the most tuneless plonker in the world. He described their music as bedwetter music, and Noel Gallagher wasn't even the most hostile voice in the decade-long media narrative that tried to establish Coldplay as the most boring band alive. Coldplay formed at University College London in 1996. Earnest from the start, unapologetically emotional. When Yellow came out in 2000, it was genuinely beautiful in a way that left no room for irony. And that turned out to be the problem. Sincerity in the era of cool detachment read as weakness. Critics started reaching for words like safe and bland and music for people who've given up. The coverage had this specific undertone of contempt. Not just for the band, but for the audience that would buy this. The musical equivalent of beige, the sound you hear in hotel lobbies, NME, Pitchfork, The Guardian. Chris Martin became a punching bag for a certain kind of music writer who needed something to be above.
Sleep alone, sweep the streets I used.
At one point, Coldplay were being cited in academic papers about the homogenization of British rock, and Chris Martin, to his genuine credit, just absorbed it. Never got mean, never escalated publicly, just kept writing songs. And while critics were writing hot takes about what Coldplay represented, what was wrong with safe, accessible, emotionally open music,
I know St. Peter won't call my name, never alone.
Coldplay became one of the highest grossing touring acts in the history of recorded music. Not just rock, all of music, stadiums, sold out everywhere, every time. And you know what's quietly funny about that? The publications writing about how no one with taste could like Coldplay were struggling to survive. The band they said had no cultural currency was filling stadiums while the cultural institutions were going bankrupt. The reputation shifted eventually. The same internet that had spent 10 years mocking Coldplay started, around 2020, doing something unexpected. Earnest appreciation. A whole generation came to the music without the critical baggage attached and found exactly what was always there. Melody, emotion, precision, no apology required. The critics who'd built careers on dismissing them had gotten very quiet. Here's the lesson underneath all of it. The hot take has a shelf life. The melody doesn't.
That was when I ruled the world.
And some of y'all first heard a Coldplay song in a very specific moment that I don't need to name. That experience isn't any less real because Pitchfork gave it a bad score.
Believe what I've become, revolutionaries.
Number 7, Kiss. The New Musical Express reviewed Kiss's debut album in 1974. The review said it absolutely reeks and predicted. And I want you to hear this. Failure on all levels. Rolling Stone named them Hype of the Year. The New York Times called them yet another plastic and empty rock quartet. And Kiss were just getting started. Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Ace Frehley, Peter Criss. New York City, 1973. Deliberately, aggressively theatrical. The makeup, the fire breathing, the blood, the platform boots. At a time when rock credibility was tied to rawness, to Dylan, to the Stones, to the emerging punk scene, Kiss showed up looking like a Marvel Comics page brought to life and said, "This is rock." Critics had a full allergic reaction. Lester Bangs, possibly the most important rock critic who ever lived, had no use for them. Robert Christgau graded their albums with a frequency that suggested personal offense. Kiss didn't care, not even a little. While the press debated what rock was supposed to mean, Kiss was filling arenas with kids who'd never cared what rock was supposed to mean. They cared what it felt like. And Kiss delivered that every single night with explosions and costumes and Gene Simmons covered in fake blood. And underneath all of it, actual song, Rock and Roll All Night, Detroit Rock City, I Was Made for Loving You, songs that worked. Not because of irony, because of pure, unashamed electricity. The critical establishment never understood how the spectacle and the substance could coexist. Kiss never asked them to. The hatred also came from fellow musicians, not just critics. A prevailing feeling in serious rock circles that Kiss had commercialized something that should have been kept sacred. The licensing deals, the lunch boxes, the Kiss Army, the action figures, a betrayal of what rock was supposed to be. And honestly, maybe they were right. Maybe Kiss were the first band to fully understand that rock could be a franchise. Whether that's a betrayal or an innovation depends entirely on how you look at it. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2014, 40 years after that NME review predicted failure on all levels. The induction became its own controversy. Gene and Paul refused to perform with the original members, very on brand, but they got in. And Kiss celebrated by going on another tour. Of course they did. And if you're nodding right now, you already know exactly what they mean to you and what the critics missed. Number 6, Creed. Rolling Stone readers once voted Creed the worst band of the 90s. A decade that included the Macarena and 15 other candidates with a stronger claim. But Creed, in a landslide. Because the hatred of Creed was never really about the music. It was about everything surrounding it. Scott Stapp, Mark Tremonti, Brian Marshall, Scott Phillips, Tallahassee, Florida, 1995. Their debut, My Own Prison, came out in 1997, best-selling debut of the year. Critics weren't impressed, but radio couldn't get enough. Then Human Clay dropped in 1999, and this is where the numbers become hard to believe. It sold over 11 million copies in the United States alone. Diamond certification, with Arms Wide Open, hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Higher was everywhere. Creed were for a window the biggest rock band in America. The backlash was severe and specific. Stapp had messianic, arms wide open imagery in every performance. He sang with an Eddie Vedder adjacent delivery that critics called derivative at best.
Those nights and those dreams.
The Christian undertones, which Stapp consistently denied were intentional, made part of the audience uncomfortable and gave another part something to mock. South Park did bits. Late Night did bits. And the press had this specific contempt for Creed's success, the implication being that any audience this large must be getting something wrong. Here's what nobody said out loud. The hatred of Creed was at least partly about class. The people who hated Creed had a specific unflattering image of who the Creed audience was, and that contempt was a real thing. You can dress it up in criticism about artistic derivativeness, but the venom in the Creed coverage was about more than the music. It was about who was listening, and the people listening didn't care. They just kept buying the records. Then came the fall, hard and fast and in public. In November 2014, Stapp posted a 15-minute video to Facebook from a Holiday Inn room. Said he was penniless, had been living in his truck. "15 years after Diamond certification, the guy who had sold 11 million albums was filming a distress signal. And the internet, which had spent 15 years mocking Creed, didn't know whether to laugh or feel terrible. Because here's the truth underneath it all. Stapp later described it as a psychotic break. Real mental illness, real pain lived in public. And there was a moment, if you watch that video, where the contempt became impossible to sustain. He was a person, not a punchline. success without lasting peace is its own kind of sentence. The press moved on without saying that clearly. Number 5, the Eagles.
This could be heaven or this could be hell.
The most successful American rock band of the 1970s. One of the best-selling compilations in the history of recorded music.
It's in the courtyard, sweet summer sweat.
And for the better part of 2 decades, the music press treated them like a disease that needed to be quarantined.
Nice surprise, what a nice surprise. Bring your alibi.
If you want to understand the history of rock criticism, you almost have to start with the hatred of the Eagles. Glenn Frey, Don Henley, Bernie Leadon, Randy Meisner, Los Angeles, 1971, slick from the beginning. Country rock with major label polish and a commercial instinct that made the counterculture crowd deeply uncomfortable.
There were voices down the corridor.
By 1977, Hotel California was everywhere. By the late 70s, their greatest hits compilations was selling in numbers that still seem almost fictional.
That's to forget. So I called him the captain.
And critics, led by Lester Bangs, one of the most influential music writers who ever lived, had decided the Eagles were the sound of everything. Wrong with rock, the California rich, the compromised dream, the professionalization of rebellion.
Nice, but they just can't kill the beast.
Lester Bangs didn't just dislike them. He used them as a symbol of what happened when rock traded its soul for a mansion in the hills.
Then she lit up a candle, and she showed me the
His criticism was precise, passionate, genuinely compelling as writing, and it influenced every critic who came after him.
some dance to remember. Some
For years, dismissing the Eagles was a prerequisite for being taken seriously in rock journalism. Corporate rock, it stuck, regardless of whether any individual listener had actually sat with the songs long enough to form their own view.
mirrors on the ceiling.
But here's what the contempt couldn't touch: the audience. The Eagles had a fan base that was simply enormous and would not be argued out of its connection to those songs.
Heard the mission bell, and I was thinking too.
People who heard Hotel California at the right moment didn't need a critic to validate the experience. Desperado, Take It Easy, Get in Town. These songs had lives inside of people, and the Eagles knew it.
Thought I heard them say, welcome to the.
Don Henley, famously prickly with the press, seemed almost to draw energy from the dismissal. In 1980, the Eagles broke up after a backstage fight on the Long Run tour.
She calls friends. How they do.
Henley famously said hell would freeze over before they made another record. Together, he meant it as a full stop.
You can check out anytime you like, but you can never.
Then in 1994, they reunited, called the album and tour Hell Freezes Over, played stadiums, sold them out to audiences that had never stopped caring. Glenn Frey died in January 2016. Don Henley still tours. Hotel California still plays on every classic rock station on earth every single day. You know what outlasts a bad review? The song itself. The actual experience of hearing it at the right time, in the right place. No critical consensus can reach into that. Number 4, U2.
You gave it all, but I want more.
On September 9th, 2014, you woke up and there was a U2 album in your iTunes library. You didn't ask for it. You didn't download it. It was just there on your phone, in your music. And that single decision by Bono, by Tim Cook, by whoever signed off on it, rewrote the narrative of U2's career in a way that still hasn't fully recovered. U2 built one of the most extraordinary careers in rock history. Genuinely, the Joshua Tree, Achtung Baby, songs that mattered to real people at real moments. Bono was, in the 80s and 90s, possibly the most credible voice in mainstream rock, combining massive commercial appeal with genuine political engagement. And then something shifted. The sincerity started reading as self-importance. The activism started feeling like posturing. The sunglasses, the nickname, the constant presence at global summits. The perception calcified into a character, and the character became a punchline. Songs of Innocence landed on 500 million iTunes accounts without permission. Tim Cook stood on stage with Bono and called it the biggest album release of all time and seemed genuinely baffled when the response was fury. Bono eventually apologized, said he got carried away, admitted to a drop of megalomania, which was honest, but the damage was done because the iTunes incident didn't just make people angry about a privacy intrusion. It crystallized something people had been feeling for years, that U2 had stopped being a band and become a brand, one that had confused its own cultural importance with a license to impose itself. Here's what makes U2's specific hatred so layered. It wasn't that the music was bad, early about Bono specifically, about the gap between his public position as the moral conscience of the planet and the fact that the band's business affairs were structured to minimize their Irish tax obligations. While Bono was attending global poverty summits and advocating for debt relief, U2's publishing was in a jurisdiction designed to reduce what they paid. That gap between the public persona and the private arrangements was something the press never fully let go of. Apple reportedly paid over $100 million for that iTunes release. The primary thing it bought was a very specific place in internet history. The moment that gave permission for open, guilt-free mockery that's never quite stopped. The irony of the most idealistic band in rock becoming the symbol of corporate overreach is either poetic or just sad. I genuinely can't decide. Number 3, Limp Bizkit. July 24th, 1999. Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome, New York. Woodstock 99. The temperature pushing 95 degrees. Water at $4 a bottle. 400,000 people in that field, already wound tight before a note was played. And then Limp Bizkit hit the stage. Fred Durst, Wes Borland, Sam Rivers, John Otto, DJ Lethal, Jacksonville, Florida. Their album, Significant Other, had just debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. Nu metal was the dominant force in late 90s rock. Limp Bizkit were its most visible, most controversial, most polarizing face. Fred Durst in a backwards red cap, rapping over down-tuned guitars. Critics hated it from the first listen. Words like juvenile and the death of rock were in print before they played half their shows. And Durst seemed to feed on that, made it part of the act. That night at Woodstock, the organizers came to the band before the set. People were already being pulled from the pit with serious injuries. They asked Durst to help settle things down. He went out and said, direct quote, "I don't think you should mellow out. This is 1999, motherfuckers." He played break stuff. The crowd tore pieces off the sound towers and surfed on them. People got badly hurt in the mosh pit. Korn's Jonathan Davis was watching from the side of the stage. He said afterward, "The second night, Limp Bizkit fed it up for everybody. He instigated the whole damn thing. I was right there watching it." When he got off the stage, Durst said a police officer told him, "I think you kind of incited a riot." Durst has always maintained the chaos wasn't entirely his fault, that the festival infrastructure, the heat, the lack of water were more culpable than his performance. And he's probably not entirely wrong. Woodstock 99 was a disaster waiting to happen long before Limp Bizkit arrived. But here's the truth. When 400,000 overheated people hear the person with the microphone say, "I don't think you should mellow out," that matters. What happened next was genuinely terrible. There were fires, multiple documented sexual assaults over the course of the festival. And Limp Bizkit carried the blame, not all of it fairly, but some of it undeniably. The strange postscript. Fred Durst reappeared in the early 2020s, and something unexpected happened. Nostalgia turned into something more genuine.
Right now I'm dangerous. We've all felt like
Gen Z discovering break stuff without the weight of that night attached. Reunion shows selling out. There's something about that either deeply heartening or deeply complicated, depending on how much weight you give the responsibility question. I'll let you decide. Number 2, Metallica.
Life is ours, we live it our way.
Think about the band that changed your relationship to music. The one that hit you at the right age and rearranged something. For a generation of rock listeners, that band was Metallica.
So close, no matter how far.
And then for a specific painful window between 2000 and 2004, Metallica became the most hated band in rock, not by critics, by their own fans. April 13th, 2000, Metallica files a lawsuit against Napster, the file-sharing service that had become how a generation discovered and spread music. The lawsuit itself wasn't unreasonable. Metallica had legitimate copyright concerns. But then the band did something that turned a legal dispute into a cultural catastrophe. They submitted a list of 335,435 individual usernames to Napster, specific fans who had shared their music, and demanded they all be banned. Over 300,000 users were blocked. Lars Ulrich delivered 60,000 pages of documentation to Napster's office personally. He then testified before the United States Senate Judiciary Committee about the case. And the optics of that, Lars Ulrich, multimillionaire drummer, testifying before Congress to protect his royalties from the kids who'd been spreading his music in bedrooms and dorms, was one of the worst public relations moments in the history of rock.
Every day for us something new.
He later admitted himself that submitting those usernames was maybe not the smartest PR move of all time. That's one way to put it. The Metallica shirts started showing up at protests. Fans burned them.
Life is ours, we live it our way.
People who had had their names submitted to a court document, kids who had been sharing music they loved, now had a concrete, personal story about the band they'd once worshipped, treating them like criminals. And this wasn't Nickelback, hated from a comfortable distance. This was Metallica, the band that had made Master of Puppets, the soundtrack to some of the most intense moments in millions of people's lives. When that band turns on you, it doesn't feel like a business dispute. It feels like betrayal. Then came Saint Anger in 2003, recorded while James Hetfield was in rehab, documented in the therapy documentary Some Kind of Monster, featuring a snare drum sound that debates are still being had about today. The documentary showed the band working through conflicts with a counselor. It humanized them in real ways. It also confirmed what the Napster lawsuit had suggested. These were people with problems who made mistakes. Not gods, not symbols, people. And here's the complicated part. The hatred never stopped permanently. Metallica earned it back. The live shows never stopped being legendary. Enough time passed that the Napster lawsuit became part of the story of how the industry failed to adapt. Not only a story of greed.
So close, no matter how far.
But for those few years in the early 2000s, if their music had been the thing you carried through your adolescence, watching them submit your username to a court document was something that didn't easily leave.
And nothing else matters.
Number 1, Nickelback.
It's not like you to say sorry. I was waiting on a door.
In November 2011, a petition appeared on change.org asking the Detroit Lions to remove Nickelback from the Thanksgiving Day halftime show.
Sorry, I was waiting on a different story. This time
It collected 55,000 signatures, not because 55,000 people had a specific grievance against Nickelback.
a poor man stealing, and this is how you remind me.
But because by 2011, hating Nickelback had become a cultural act, something you participated in, and almost nobody was sure anymore where it had started.
You remind me of what I really am.
Chad Kroger, Ryan Peake, Mike Kroger, Daniel Adair, Hannah, Alberta, Canada, a town of 2,000 people. Nickelback grounded out for years, signed a major deal, and by 2001 had How You Remind Me sitting at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. They went on to sell nearly 50 million albums worldwide. 50 million. They were, by raw commercial numbers, one of the most successful rock acts of the post-grunge era. And simultaneously, by the mid-2000s, they had become the cultural shorthand for musical badness. Here's what makes the Nickelback phenomenon genuinely unprecedented. The hatred was not primarily critical. It was communal. It spread like an inside joke that kept growing until it stopped being a joke. The internet needed a consensus target, a band everyone could agree was the acceptable thing to despise. And Nickelback fit a very specific profile. Successful enough to resent, familiar enough that everyone knew the reference, not dangerous enough to make the mockery feel mean. They were the safe hate.
Damn near killed you, and this is how you remind me.
Then the photograph meme landed in 2012. A screenshot of Chad Kroger holding a photo, the caption doing the rest, and the memification was complete. Nickelback had become a symbol before most people had consciously decided to make them one. Here's what you need to actually understand about the music. How You Remind Me is a structurally sound rock song. Photograph, the meme vehicle, has a melody that clearly works on some level, or it wouldn't have been a hit. Nickelback were not bad at making radio rock. They were extremely good at making radio rock. That was the problem. The production, the chorus hooks, the dynamics, all of it hit with a precision that felt calculated to listeners who wanted their rock to feel accidental, rough, slightly dangerous. Nickelback sounded like rock music that had been through quality control. And that specific quality of offense is why no other band has generated quite this level of organized contempt. The Detroit petition didn't stop the halftime show. Nickelback played anyway, got audibly booed. And according to a statistical analysis of Google search data, that Thanksgiving game was the cultural tipping point. The moment when dormant Nickelback grievances got formalized and searchable. Chad Kroeger has talked about it calmly, without visible bitterness. Noted that they sold 50 million albums. Noted that the same people signing petitions had clearly listened enough to form strong opinions. Somewhere around 2022, the narrative started shifting. Ironic appreciation giving way to actual appreciation. The same internet that had built the joke starting to quietly ask, did we do that? Did we just collectively decide to hate a band that millions of people genuinely loved? For reasons that had more to do with needing a common target than anything the music actually did wrong? I don't think there's a clean answer. But the fact that we're asking it means something.
This is how